The Buffalo Bills have been given a second chance when it comes to Maxx Crosby. And if I'm Brandon Beane, I am doing everything in my power to make him a Buffalo Bill. Stevie Johnson, are you with me?
You know I'm with you, Hein time, and you know Big Baller Beane don't miss. So he's going to push it to the max to bring Crosby in to the Buffalo Bills, I believe.
Push it to the max. That is what I'm talking about. Stevie Johnson has not lost a step at all during this offseason.
It's not an offseason for Stevie Johnson.
No, certainly. And it's been a quiet offseason for the Buffalo Bills. Of course, the addition of DJ Moore, D. Alford coming over from Atlanta. But you have to wonder, is there something else percolating behind the scenes? I don't think Brandon Beane thought that this Crosby deal was going to fall apart the way that it has. But clearly they were in on Trey Hendrickson, and they need to get in on Crosby if they weren't already before Baltimore tried to trade for him.
This is Broken Table. Hein, Stevie Johnson, AK. We are back for the offseason. Let's go. The whole show lineup has kind of changed based off of this morning. We came into this morning and it was like, hey, we'll give some Bills free agency grades. We'll talk about what's happening with the market. We can discuss DJ Moore, which we are still going to get to, and we will still give our grades. But the whole free agency world has been shaken because of what happened last night with this trade falling apart. They're basically, Maxx Crosby failed his physical, quote unquote. Then all of a sudden we see Trey Hendrickson signs that deal.
What a coincidence.
A big deal with the Ravens. Let's start with just overall, and AK, I'll start with you here. Was there like something shady going on here? Is this malfeasance and skullduggery, or do you think the Ravens actually just looked at the physical and didn't like what they saw?
I think they probably looked at the physical and didn't like what they saw, but they knew what was coming. I mean, Maxx Crosby is fresh off meniscus surgery, just got off crutches last week. So if they expected he was going to come in and be running a 4.5 40, they were sorely mistaken, and they knew that wasn't the case. This is pretty obvious what's happened here. Baltimore found out that Trey Hendrickson wanted to go there, and they looked at the physical and said, we can get out of this. So they decided to keep their 2 first-round picks they were going to trade to the Raiders, took Trey Hendrickson, and I think they looked at it this way. Do we want bad karma, or do we want 2 first-round picks? I'm taking the first-round picks, personally.
Yeah, it was a good business move for the Baltimore Ravens. You know, there's no way that you look at Maxx Crosby and say, all right, I'm going to bank on potential and give away 2 first-rounders. You know, and then you have another guy with the same athleticism and potential without that same health risk. You know, it was an obvious business choice, and I think the Baltimore Ravens did the right thing, which will ultimately open the doors for other teams to grab the potential of Maxx Crosby, like our Buffalo Bills.
So, yeah, let's get to that in 1 second. But one main thing I think is important. All of the reporting has said that Baltimore knew Crosby. They knew exactly what they were getting health-wise. Like you said, surgery was a month ago, off crutches a week ago. He wasn't going to be ready to sort of pass a physical until June anyways, according to what Schefter was saying this morning. So, yeah, they definitely did some shady behavior, and you can't really blame them because they don't have to pay that price of the first-round picks, and they get a guy not as good as Crosby, but pretty damn close.
Yeah.
But now when it comes to the Bills, does the price lower a bit? Because it kind of has to, right? Like, I think now instead of 2 firsts, if you're going to say the Bills will give up this year's first and say a 2 and a 4 next year, if you're the Bills, I think you got to do that.
And that might be a trade that gets it done. I don't think that's a crazy notion at all. A first and a future second and fourth. Yeah, and of course the Bills did trade away some draft capital, bring in DJ Moore, a second-round pick, but you're in a win-now window. Like, you got to be going for it. And this is something we were so critical of the Bills last year, not going out and trading for Jalen Waddle when they had the opportunity. We saw what type of receiver core they were throwing out there. The Bills' defense right now is currently constructed. I don't know if Jim Leonard thinks he's going to go out and play, because he might have to. The way that this team looks up front and the linebacking core, and there's still moves they can make, but beyond the secondary, there's not a lot there. Adding a Crosby, my goodness, that would completely change everything defensively for Buffalo, and I think that's something they desperately need.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, AK, about the missed opportunities last season with a lot of the trades and the draft picks, I would say. This year, Triple B understands what he missed out on last year, and you have to throw the cards in. With a deal like this, a guy like this, he's motivated. It's similar to Diggs. You know, when Diggs came from Minnesota to Buffalo, he was released not off health injuries, but he was motivated to prove that he was better. Maxx is motivated, and with the injury, I believe it's going to push him even more to be a beast in this game going forward. So I'm hoping we can pull the trigger and learn from our mistakes last season.
Now, we've talked about it all pretty much since this show started 2 seasons ago. And Stevie has said it, Chezzy has said it. The Bills needed to find their Josh Allen on defense. The Bills have lost these playoff games because of a lack of a pass rush. You want to criticize Josh Allen for the Broncos game? That's fine, but his offense still put up 30, and McDermott's defense still gave up over 30 once again. You get a guy like Maxx Crosby, that can change everything. Now, a big issue, the price tag. Coming into today, the Bills were about $12 million over the cap, but they restructured Josh Allen's deal, and they're pretty much around there. Now, we've said this before. The cap is fairy dust. It's fugazi. It's that scene from Wolf of Wall Street with McConaughey. No one knows how it works or anything.
Yeah.
So if you're going to tell me the Bills were in on Trey Hendrickson, which all of the reporting says they were, and if we're going to look at Albert Breer's Monday Morning Quarterback, which also said the Bills were in on Maxx Crosby before, this tells me that the cap stuff with him, maybe not as big of an issue, and Beane will be able to work his cap magic. I know they can restructure Dawkins, they can restructure Josh Palmer, and they can make the money make sense. I think it's just a matter of, do you want to give up that draft capital?
That's it. And I guarantee you, the Indianapolis Colts, who we know were hot on Trey Hendrickson, will be in on Crosby. We know the Eagles were in. There were other teams that were in on Hendrickson and Crosby, who will be back in on Crosby, assuming the Raiders decide to move him. But for Buffalo, I mean, I think this is a no-brainer. And certainly, talk about Philadelphia, they're a team that could win the Super Bowl next year, win the NFC. But Buffalo is the most clear-cut contender. And if I'm Maxx Crosby, I'm doing everything I can to let Raiders ownership know, hey, Tom Brady, yeah, this is probably where I'd like to go. And, of course, the offer has to be commensurate with his value. But the Buffalo Bills have the financial flexibility, the draft capital to make it happen. It's a no-brainer for me. Even if you give up 2 firsts. I mean, what are we doing here? We have Josh Allen in his prime. You're talking about one of the best defensive players in the National Football League, a total game wrecker. Make it happen. Let's go. Push all those chips in the middle. Bring in one of the best players in the NFL.
Yes, and I definitely love what you said, Hein, about Josh Allen restructuring his contract. I love to hear that. That's things that Tom Brady did to get the team better, to bring more pieces in. And that's going to trickle down to the Deion Dawkins, those guys who are getting paid a lot, but now they got their money. They want to get that ring. So I love that you said that, and that's actually happening in the building. So we'll see a even better team this upcoming season.
Now, we'll move on from Max in a second, but I have one thing I want to ask Stevie about. Everything we see, both eye test and hear anecdotally about Maxx Crosby, this is a guy that takes no snaps off. He plays every single snap. As far as the reporting tells, he is a leader in the locker room, and he leads by example when everybody else sees him being like, I'm not coming off the field, and I'm giving it 100% for all of those snaps. What does that do for your locker room, especially, Stevie, when you have a new guy like Jim Leonard who's trying to change the culture of the defense? What would someone like Max do to that defense and the locker room?
Okay, to put it in perspective, think about what Michael Hoyt brought. Now, he brought a lot of energy on his own. However, he was infectious to that defensive line. Now you add the Ed Oliver energy with the Michael Hoyt, with the energy of a Maxx Crosby who's relentless, and he's tied into the community. I mean, you got the total package. So Maxx Crosby being able to play each down, anything's going to happen. You know, when I say anything's going to happen, I mean like an injury, some type of injury. And not on him, but that might be on a quarterback. I'm not wishing that on them. But when you play downs as relentless as Maxx Crosby play, things start happening. Tweaks happen because he's flying around and he's making plays. So, I mean, this is a must get at this point right now. You have to throw it all in, like AK said. Give up the first rounds, all that, the trade the cap space out, all that, whatever. Go get this man right now.
He's right, man. And again, when the Ravens made the trade for Crosby initially, of course, we know it was rescinded, but you looked at it and say, good for the Ravens. Go all in. They got Lamar Jackson. They've got a new coach. They've got Derrick Henry, who's getting older. Good for them for pushing their chips in the middle. Why would there be any hesitancy with the Buffalo Bills, who are better than the Baltimore Ravens? Last year, Baltimore missed the playoffs. The Bills were one of the best teams in the AFC. So I think it's just a no-brainer. But again, we've seen the Bills being hesitant to give up first-round picks in the past, including at the trade deadline. I would hope that they've learned from their past mistakes, as Stevie mentioned.
Well, now, and when it comes to the defense, I know we talked a little before the show, you're worried about the defense and the lack of talent. I actually think these pieces, they could fit. Like, I'm excited to see Russo as like a stand-up outside linebacker and see how that fits in Jim Leonard's defense. You could maybe see Ed Oliver move to like a 3-4 end. I'm excited to see how Jim Leonard will take what we think are good pieces and move them around to maximize what they are. Because we look at the guys in the D-line and it's like, we know they're talented, but McDermott was never able to get the best out of them.
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued to see what Leonard can do with the talent that's already there, even though they kind of don't really have any linebackers.
Well,
but that's an easy position to fill.
They don't have any linebackers. I love the DBs. I mean, you talk about Benford and Hairston to start. Awesome. My boy, D. Alford. Grey Cup champion D. Alford with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Love him. I think that's a really nice addition because he can play multiple positions on defense.
He's likely your Taron Johnson or Taron Johnson replacement.
Exactly. Yeah. But when you point to the pass rush, and you talk about Rousseau and Michael Hoyt, amongst others, Ed Oliver had some injury concerns last year. There's just some question mark. And I want more certainty. That's why the idea of Crosby is so alluring, or Trey Hendrickson, sadly not an option. But yeah, the linebackers are lacking at this point. But listen, Sean McDermott made chicken blank at a chicken whatever the saying goes a lot last year. In the last couple of years, Jim Leonard might have to do a lot of the same, Stevie.
Yeah, and there's a great nucleus in that linebacker room with the young guys. You know, they have a motor. So it's just about adding more depth to that position and letting them go out and play like dogs with their hair on fire, in my opinion.
Now, at the risk of alienating half of the Bills fan base, dare I say that Brandon Beane had a good read of the market going into free agency. And everybody wanted to criticize the fact that, they gave up a 2 in the DJ Moore deal. But now after we saw what Pierce got paid, after we see that A.J. Brown is potentially could go for a 1 and a 2.
Romeo Dobbs
goes for that kind of money. I think Beane really had the market mapped out before anybody else. And that's why I love that DJ Moore trade. I like the contract, the fact that he's $23.75 million over the next 3 years. And when you talk about Connor McGovern, that people are saying he could get 15 to 18 mil a year, and you got him at much less than that. Look at the Linderbaum contract. I am really happy with how Beane has handled this free agency so far in terms of those internal pieces. Brought in your boy from the CFL, as
That's right. Well, from the Atlanta Falcons previously with the CFL. He was with
But I think, and with DJ Moore, that is a guy, we learned this from Brandon Cooks. Josh Allen loves to play with a certain type of receiver, and we saw that with Cooks. And now DJ Moore is that same type of guy, Stevie. What are you most excited about with DJ Moore coming to Buffalo?
Yeah, well, I love that he's proven. You know, he's proven in the league. And when I say that is because he's been through a lot of situations. He understands how to place his hands on a defensive back. He understands how to do certain moves in situations. So with DJ Moore being on the team, it's like another safety valve for Josh Allen. So with that being said, it should open up a lot of other guys considering the targets and the attention that DJ Moore would have from what he done in the past with his with the Chicago Bears last season.
Yeah, I think it's a fine acquisition. I wasn't jumping for joy. I thought.
Oh, I was.
You were jumping for joy.
I loved it. Yes, I was jumping for joy.
Again, and we know Joe Brady has familiarity with DJ
That's
Moore
a big reason why.
From their time back in Carolina together. But yeah, that was like 5-6 years ago, and that was when DJ Moore was at his apex. The last couple of years, DJ Moore hasn't been as great as he was earlier in his career, and certainly in Chicago, there were a bunch of weapons. We saw Luther Burden really emerge in the second half last year. Colston Loveland take targets away from DJ Moore, but he's the unquestioned number one in this offense. I think he and Khalil Shakir will form a dynamic duo. But as far as what we're talking about on defense, I mean, I'm hearing all these reports. Brian Thomas Jr. might be available in trade. Why not go and augment your receiver room even further? Again, Josh Palmer.
Apparently, there was a fifth.
Again, you're talking about an ultimate buy low and Brian Thomas Jr. A year ago, we're talking about Brian Thomas Jr. as a first-round fantasy pick, and now no one wants him anymore. It was quick fall from grace. So I wonder if Crosby doesn't happen, could Buffalo go all in on the receiver group? And I love Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox coming back for another year on a restructured deal. Stevie, I mean, do you still see perhaps some space for Buffalo to maneuver with regards to wide receivers?
Absolutely. I still see at least 3 more receivers coming into this room, including a draft pick, maybe later on in day 2 or whatnot. But you have to bring more playmakers in. I love the fact that we are on a hunt for guys continually. Last year, we had some big signings. However, we didn't get any points out of 2 of those big signings that we had. So that being said, for sure, you got to load up the room. And if Brian Thomas is available, you definitely go out and try to get him. Whoever's available, you know, it's the time to do that right now with Josh Allen leading his offense.
Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see what they do at receiver because there's guys out there, and Buffalo's got a lot of openings as far as snaps at that position.
Here is why I love the DJ Moore trade so much for this team, and it's mostly because of fit. What's been the biggest problem with this team that we've talked about relentlessly over the last couple
Beating
years?
man coverage.
Beating man coverage and the lack of the deep ball. I got some numbers here for you.
Yes.
DJ Moore has totaled the 5th most receiving yards against man coverage since joining the Bears in 2023. Also generated the 3rd most receiving EPA versus man in that span. And I'll keep hitting you in the head with stats here. DJ Moore is one of 5 players with 50 catches on throws, 20-plus air yards over the last 5 seasons. The other names on that list, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, George Pickens. The Bills had the lowest average depth in the NFL last season at 9.2 yards.
You know what I thought was really interesting, though? Here's another number for you. FanDuel had some over-unders for receiving yards. Do you know what DJ Moore's was to open?
750?
725.
Yeah.
725. And I'm like, that seems kind of low. And of course, we know that's more so about the offensive philosophy for Buffalo the last couple of years, where I hate to say the 2 words, but everybody eats. They spread it around. But 725. DJ Moore's playing 17 games. Should blow past that.
And I think maybe, Stevie, you can touch on this. Since you have Moore, maybe that slots everybody back into their proper spot, where Shakir can primarily just be like, hey, man, you're going to be our screen guy. You're going to be in the slot. We're going to kind of find you on 3rd down against zone. Like, what does Moore's addition mean to everybody else in that receiving core?
It just shows versatility. DJ Moore has been a versatile receiver on each team from the outside to the slot. And like I said earlier, he's been in a lot of situations. Those situations he's won, which has gained the respect of the defense. So now he can get up on the defense and do whatever he wants, whatever kind of route he wants. And that just shows the other guys, hey, you got to be versatile too if you want to be a player on this team or in this league. And you can't just be stuck to being an outside guy or thinking I'm a number 1 or number 2 or number 3. You got to just be a playmaker. Go out there and win. And DJ Moore has shown that he can win. My only thing against DJ Moore, he has star power. So that's one thing that I'll be looking for when the targets aren't necessarily there, is what type of energy he'll bring for the team. Is it going to be a Mac Hollins energy? I'm not getting the ball, but I'm still going, Tyrell Shavers type? Or will he, lower the morale? We'll see.
That's the problem, because there was a little bit of whispers of that last year in Chicago.
The D word was mentioned. Do you know what the D word is?
Enlighten me.
Diva.
But
you don't like that. You don't like that.
We're all divas.
Yeah, Stevie nailed it.
Just give him the ball, a couple targets, it'll turn him up,
Well, but also, too, it's like when the other option was talked about was A.J. Brown, I feel like A.J. Brown is much more of a toxic asset when it comes to what he'll do to your receiver room. But at the same time, the talent is significantly more.
Yeah, prototypical number 1, big body, does everything right with A.J. But again, I think I'm certain Beane went around the NFL and was like, hey, Minnesota, is Justin Jefferson available? They're like, sure, give us three firsts.
Yeah.
And like, no thanks. And like Jamar Chase and A.J. Brown, I guarantee they called on everybody and they looked at it and said, this is probably the best we can do. And we also need to factor in the reality that Buffalo wasn't exactly in the most high leverage position. Yes. Everybody around the NFL looks at them and says, we know you're desperate for a receiver. This is the cost you're going to have to pay.
Imagine it was a third instead of a second, and they got a 6 back instead of a 5th. Everybody would have been singing a different tune and talking about how like this is
like Michael Pittman you're talking about.
Well, and people tried to compare the two things. Michael Pittman is not DJ Moore. Michael Pittman is a fine receiver. He is not DJ Moore, but it's also the cost. $23.75 million. Yeah, you've guaranteed that and you have that over some time. But the guy's 28 years old, will be 29 when the season starts. Given the price that everybody else is going for, I think getting him under 25 mil is a good price for DJ Moore. And like I said, this guy fits the type of player Josh Allen wants to play with. And that's so important. Like, Stevie, how big is that when you have a guy whose skill set matches the quarterback?
It's everything. It's called a safety valve. And Josh already actually had that, because we have to remember this is a running team first. You know, you got a safety valve in James Cook, and then you have safety valves in Dawson and in Dalton. You know, so to add a guy on the outside along with Khalil Shakir is money in the bank. And then with Keon Coleman, he's still going to be the X factor. Mm-hmm. The guy who's maybe on the outside, line him up in the slot, wherever. He may not be the first read, but with him being in his third year in the league, he'll understand his timing on when he needs to be open for Josh. And most of the time, it may not be there until later on in the game when they need him, because DJ Moore will consume a lot of the passes and Khalil Shakir, plus the run game, plus Josh has to run. But Keon Coleman, he should be in a great mindset of playing 17 games like a DJ Moore, because you're not going to be as high volume in situations now that you got these two stars on your team.
And honestly, Coleman is a guy who, Stevie, credit to you and credit to Chezzy, you guys have been wanting to see him in the slot for a while. And I think maybe if we get to see him in the slot, like, AK, we talk about our portfolios. I love a good buy low. Keon Coleman, I'm not giving up on Keon Coleman.
Well, we'll see if the Bills feel the same way.
I don't think the Bills are either. Based off of everything we've heard, I don't think the Bills are giving up on him. And I'm whatever. Call me a homer all you want, people in the comments. I am not giving up on Keon Coleman just yet, especially now with the addition of
You're talking about a stock that's down 98%, pretty much from its all-time high. And you're looking at it and like, okay, there's potential for massive rebound. There's also the potential for that stock to go to zero.
That's fine, but like, look, high reward, low risk.
That's it. That's the name of the game right there.
Let's give out some grades. So, AK, when you look at the Bills offseason so far, basically McGovern bringing in, and let's just say this. I don't know if you guys read the quote from Connor McGovern.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to read this here. $13 million is a hell of a lot of money. If me and my family can't live off that, shame on us. Is a couple of $1 million worth our happiness here? Is that going to change our lives? We decided no. We thought the best fit would be here in Buffalo. Credit to Connor McGovern and credit to the community of Western New York. Stevie, you are someone who was brought in by that community. It just means something different to be there. But Connor McGovern could have got a big payday. And that is so important that we now have 4/5 of that offensive line back as opposed to 3/5.
Yes, and boots on the ground for Connor McGovern. He's one of those guys. He's one of those Western New York type of guys, and he understands it. He really understands it, and it seems like he's got a great community within his family. So that's really good to hear from him. And you can tell that he's willing to run through a wall for the Buffalo Bills and his quarterback and his coordinator. So I love it. I love to hear it.
So we got McGovern in. We got DJ Moore in. Dawson Knox is re-signed.
Punter's back.
You got Epinesa and Bosa are both pending free agents. Not going to be back probably. They're not fits in Jim Leonard's defense. Taron Johnson gone, replaced by Alfred. I am going to give the Bills a B-.
That was my grade as well.
I just think the DJ Moore trade could really change this offense a lot. And it's kind of an incomplete because there's still moves to be made. We talked about Crosby, but right now I'm going to say B- just because of how much I think that DJ Moore can change the offense.
I think B- is the perfect grade. I couldn't agree more. I think it's been satisfactory. A B- for me in school, guys, as you're well aware, was an amazing grade.
We're very rare. Sports media. It's
very rare.
I
was
C
like
students.
A C guy, maybe C+ on a good day. But I think the Bills still have a potential to make this an A offseason with an impact addition on defense. And again, whether it's Maxx Crosby, whether it's somebody else, it's there for the Buffalo Bills. And I think it's something that they need to seriously consider and hopefully execute.
I'm riding with you guys. We on the B average, and like AK said, with the potential to even go higher because there's still more time out there and there's more players to be had. So I'm going to go with the B right now. I'm excited for
Stevie was honor roll at Kentucky, though. I mean,
was he really?
Absolutely.
Academic All-American or what?
Absolutely.
I have some help. Yeah, community.
I will say this. They have some weaknesses at linebacker. We've discussed. They have now a need at guard. Dre Greenlaw, available, comes from the Jim Leonard defense.
That gets you to a B.
Well, that gets that
maybe a B+.
Wyatt Teller, former Bill who they gave up on too early. You have a need at guard. If you could bring in two guys like that, that bumps it to an A. You trade for a guy like Maxx Crosby, that's an A+++.
Yeah, and let's not forget about the draft. There's a lot of things that can happen at the draft, whether it's a receiver, maybe it is a pass rusher, maybe they trade up. Who knows? That's why there's so much intrigue. And the draft not far away. I cannot wait.
And we will be coming back we got a couple draft shows. We'll be back the Monday before the draft and then the Monday after to recap. Yeah. But before we go, it's a wonderful time of year because FanDuel has put out season win totals. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't already smash a lot on that Bills over 10.5 because Josh Allen hasn't won less than 11 games since that first playoff year, which was a long time ago.
And he's got 4 wins locked in already in the AFC East.
I'm going to say he's got 6 wins when you with the Pats.
Ooh.
So looking at these preseason win totals, Stevie, I'm guessing you love Bills over 10.5.
Absolutely. You cannot go under 10 wins when you have Josh Allen on your team, and you called it out. He hasn't been under 11. So I'm going to go with 12. Oof. But it's not about being the best throughout the season. It's about peaking in January. So we'll see what happens with our Buffalo Bills when that time comes. But 12 wins for me.
Yeah, I think the over 10.5 is about as safe as it gets.
And it's minus 120 right now on
very
FanDuel.
reasonable price.
By the time you see this, AK is a whale. He might move the market, but it's minus 120. You'll see it on the graphic.
A dolphin, maybe not a whale, but yeah, there could be some sprinkling on that for sure.
Okay, what about you? What's your favorite over/under?
All right, try not to roll your eyes too much when I say this. You guys ready? Strap in. Miami Dolphins over 4.5 wins. My guy Malik Willis.
Hold on, nothing like 99 mil in dead cap.
Yes, you're right. You're right, and that's why the total is so incredibly low. But Green Bay, those guys coming over, Halfley, Sullivan from Green Bay, they're now running the operation in Miami. They know Malik Willis better than anybody. They gave him $45 million guaranteed. Do I think he's going to come out and be Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes? No. But I think he could be very competent and provide a different ability when it comes to the offense in Miami, certainly than Tua did. His ability was to throw terrible passes and interceptions. So I really like what Miami's got as far as their skill position players go with Achane and certainly with Jalen Waddle still there. And on defense, they've got some players too. So it's a very low number. 5 wins for the Fins. Yeah. Lock it in.
I also looked at that Miami number. I also do lean the over. I like Malik Willis. I think he's fine. But I'm going with the Steelers under 7.5 wins.
Ooh.
Do you know the last time the Steelers were under that number?
I would guess when Chuck Noll was their coach.
2003. It was still Bill Cowher. I think this is the year the fan base learns just how good of a coach Mike Tomlin was. And going from him to Mike McCarthy, they've been 10-7 the last 3 years. How much of that was because of Tomlin propping up a bad roster? And I think this is the year the bill always comes due, and this is the year the bill comes due. I think they definitely have a significant drop-off, and I'm going under 7.5. Rodgers a year older. Defense was already shaky last year. That's a year older.
You're going to have to explain to me. I hope someone can. Maybe Stevie can. Why would you bring Rodgers back, who's turning 43, when Kyler Murray is a free agent and get him for like nothing?
I don't think Kyler Murray...
The upside is just so much higher with Kyler Murray. I don't think
Kyler Murray wants to go to a situation. I think if you're Kyler Murray and you need to resurrect your career, you need to go to one of these gurus. And when you have
like Kevin O'Connell,
when you have KOC in Minnesota who can kind of rebuild you, Mike McCarthy ain't doing that. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a spot. If I'm Kyler Murray, I too would go to Minnesota. It's indoors as well. And do I want to go to Pittsburgh and take over that situation? And that also implies that Pittsburgh looks at Kyler Murray as an upgrade over Aaron Rodgers, which I'm not sure they do.
And honestly, Pittsburgh needs a bottom out, but we've been just yelling since we got here. We're fired up. Free agency's going. Guys, it's been too long. I'm just going to say, but we will be back draft week. We will see you then. Catch us on Apple, YouTube, Spotify. Stevie, play us out.
Bills Mafia, believe in Beane. He will lead us to the promised land, all right? One love. This has been a Broken Table production. Go Bills for life, baby.